Hey there, future CAs, tax consultants, and anyone currently staring blankly at a balance sheet at 2 in the morning. Grab your highlighters and maybe a dangerously large cup of coffee, because today's explainer is all about saving clueless charitable trusts from the absolute wrath of the income tax department. Yep, we're diving deep into the brand new Registered Nonprofit Organization Framework, or RNPO, under the Income Tax Act 2025. It's going to be a wild ride. So let's kick things off with the ultimate client blunder. You know the one, running a highly profitable commercial business, but, slapping a charity label on it just to avoid taxes. We have all seen those clients, right? The ones who honestly think selling luxury handcrafted artisanal soaps at a massive markup is somehow relief for the poor, just because they donated a single bar last Tuesday. Well, newsflash, the tax man is totally on to them. And as their CA, you absolutely need to be too. All right, here is your audit checklist for the day. First, we'll meet the RNPO tax regime. Second, defining true charitable purposes. Third, the famous 85% application rule. Fourth, accumulation and deemed application. Fifth, violations and specified income. And finally, calculating the final tax. Let's get right into it. Starting with Section 1, meet the RNPO tax regime, covering Sections 332 to 355. So the government basically got tired of staggered provisions and created this one unified system. Here's the deal. Before a charity can claim even a single rupee in tax benefits, they need provisional registration, which is valid for 3 years. Then, once they actually start doing good deeds, the clock starts ticking. They have exactly 6 months to apply for regular registration. If your exhausted article assistant misses this deadline, oh boy, your client's tax exemptions will vanish faster than free samosas in the firm's break room. Moving on to Section 2, defining true charitable purposes under Section 346, you'll really have to ask yourself, is your client actually helping society or just trying to tax-deduct a private yoga retreat? Look, noble causes like relief of the poor, running schools, teaching yoga, and medical relief, those are fully protected. But notice that last category right there, general public utility, or GPU. Guys, GPU is a massive, massive trap for the unwary. Why is it a trap? Because of this 20% threshold. If your GPU client gets a little too enthusiastic and their commercial business receipts exceed 20% of their total receipts, boom, exemption stripped immediately. Now, they don't lose their overall registration, but they will absolutely be paying taxes that year, like a ruthless for-profit corporation. You've got to track those commercial receipts like a hawk. All right, Section 3, the 85% application rule. Spend it to exempt it. To claim that sweet, sweet tax exemption, your client's trust must actually spend, or, in tax terms, apply, at least 85% of its regular income on its charitable objects, right here in India. The remaining 15%? That is the slice they can safely tuck away in their piggy bank without any specific conditions. It's basically their rainy day fund. Now here is where you actually earn those audit fees. You have to ruthlessly separate the safe, regular income from specified income. Apply 85% of that regular income properly and you're tax-free. But specified income, that is the danger zone. It gets slapped with a flat 30% tax, and the tax department won't let you claim a single rupee in deductions against it. Zilch. Let's look at Section 4, accumulation and deemed application under Section 342. Okay, so what if your client just can't spend that massive 85% chunk before the tax year ends? Like, say they got a giant donation on March 30th. Don't panic. The government generously gives them a maximum of 5 years to accumulate it. But there's always a catch, right? It has to be for a specific charitable purpose, like, building a new hospital wing. It can't just sit in a bank vault gathering dust. To get this 5-year grace period, you've got to file an electronic statement before the tax return due date and invest the funds strictly in Section 350 permitted modes, like government securities. But beware the ultimate exam trick. Under the 2025 Act, if your client accumulates funds and then just donates some to another charity, the taxman treats that as a massive violation. It's not considered an application of income anymore. It gets taxed immediately as specified income. No exceptions. Section 5. Violations and specified income. Welcome to the danger zone. This is what happens when trustees go rogue and completely ignore your brilliant CA advice. These are the Section 351 specified violations. If a charity applies income for private religious purposes, benefits a specific caste, runs non-genuine activities, or, just outright lies on their forms, committing even one of these brings an angry principal commissioner of income tax down on them to cancel their registration entirely. They then get hit with an exit tax on total net assets at the maximum marginal rate. Trust me, it is a financial bloodbath. No, you cannot use trust funds to pay your nephew a massive salary. Look, every tax consultant has had to scream this exact quote at a client at least once. Under Section 355, any income applied directly or indirectly to benefit founders, trustees, or their relatives instantly becomes taxable specified income. No, you cannot buy a luxury convertible for the founder's son using trust money. It'll be taxed at a flat 30%, accompanied by a brutal 100% penalty for the very first violation. Just don't do it. Now, what about anonymous donations? The ones where the charity just magically lost the donor's name and address. Well, the exemption limit under Section 337 is actually pretty simple. It's just the higher of 5% of total donations or 1 lakh rupees. Anything hovering above that limit falls straight into the tax net as specified income. And you need to memorize this number. All of this dreaded specified income, whether it's from enriching related parties, forbidden investments, or those sneaky anonymous donations exceeding the limit, is slapped with a flat 30% tax rate. And the absolute worst part for your clients? 0 deductions are allowed against it. No expenses, no depreciation, absolutely nothing. Finally, Section 6. Calculating the final tax. Format A versus default mode. Let's pull all this theory together so you can score full marks on your computations and honestly keep your future clients out of jail. This Format A is your holy grail for compliant RNPOs. You start with gross regular income, neatly subtract your 15% deemed accumulation. Then subtract the actual money applied to charity in India. That gives you your taxable regular income at normal slab rates. Then, and only then, you tack on that nasty 30% specified income at the very bottom. It's clean, it's logical, and most importantly, it's taxman approved. But what if your client completely fails to maintain their books or just forgets to file their audit report on time? Well, Section 353 traps them in default mode. The 85% rule vanishes. Deductions for capital expenditure? Denied. Depreciation? Denied. Intercharity donations? Completely ignored. They only get to deduct specific day-to-day revenue expenses. It is a highly punishing computation that will literally make your client weep. So future accounting legends, that is the RNPO regime in a nutshell. Review this explainer one more time before your exam, stay incredibly sharp, and whatever you do not let your clients sneak secret business receipts past you. But it does leave us with a much bigger question. As the government makes these compliance rules stricter and the penalties more brutal every single year, are we just regulating fake charities out of existence? Or are we accidentally making it impossible for the real ones to survive? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy auditing!